At my college graduation, my parents gave my twin sister an all-expenses-paid trip to Europe. They gave me a $10 coffee shop gift card. They thought I would just take the humiliation, but they forgot about the trust fund, and that I had a lawyer's number saved on my phone. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The backyard was buzzing. String lights hung between the oak trees, and the air smelled like grilled chicken and my mother's hydrangeas. It was our college graduation party, a joint celebration for me and my twin sister, Clara. I was exhausted, running on the fumes of my final exams for my software engineering degree, but I was happy. I'd graduated with honors, and I'd already aced my first interview with a major tech firm. All I needed was to pass the advanced certification course. The one my parents had promised was my real graduation gift. I was clutching a cup of lemonade when my father, Mark, tapped the microphone. "A toast," he boomed. My mother, Janice, beamed beside him, her arm looped through Clara's. "To our girls," he said, "we are so proud." He turned to Clara first. "Clara, for your art history degree, your mother and I are giving you something to see that history firsthand. You're going to Europe for 6 weeks." The yard erupted in cheers. Clara burst into tears, hugging them both. I clapped until my hands were sore, genuinely happy for her. Then, my mother picked up a small, flimsy envelope from the table. She walked over to me, her smile faltering just a bit. "And for our little genius, Alina," she said, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "To keep you fueled for all those job interviews." She handed me the envelope. I opened it, thinking it was a check or perhaps the enrollment papers for my certification. It was not. It was a green and white gift card. Printed on the front, in cheerful letters, was $10. A few people laughed, thinking it was the opening act for a bigger gift, but my mother just patted my shoulder and turned back to Clara. The silence from my parents was deafening. I stood there, holding a piece of plastic worth less than the catering trays, and the blood drained from my face. The humiliation was a physical thing, hot and suffocating. It wasn't about the money, it was the message. After a lifetime of this, they weren't even trying to hide it anymore. The drive home was awful. Clara, predictably, went out with her friends to celebrate, her new luggage tags already dangling from her purse. I was relegated to the back seat of my parents' car, just like I was when I was 8. My mother filled the silence, chattering about passport photos and how Clara would need a sensible money belt. "Wasn't that a wonderful party?" she asked, looking at me in the rearview mirror. I just stared out the window. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Why what, dear?" she replied, her tone breezy. "Why would you do that to me?" I said, louder now. "A $10 gift card, in front of everyone." My father sighed from the driver's seat. "Alina, don't be dramatic. It was a joke. Your real gift is the certification course, we told you that." "So where is it?" I asked, sitting up. "Where are the enrollment papers, the check for the tuition?" My mother turned in her seat. "We'll get to it, Alina. Goodness. Clara's trip is time-sensitive, we had to book it, your course can wait." "It starts in 3 weeks," I said flatly. "The deadline to register is next Friday." "Then you'll have to wait for the next one," my father said, his voice clipped. "We just spent a fortune on this trip. You have to be reasonable." Reasonable? I was always the reasonable one. The one who got the scholarship so they could afford Clara's private art tutors. The one who worked a part-time job so I wouldn't have to ask them for spending money. The one who never complained when my 10-year-old laptop died during finals week while Clara got a new car for her 21st birthday. I sank back into the seat, the anger cold and sharp. They weren't going to pay for it. They were going to drain their accounts for Clara and then tell me to be reasonable and take out a loan. They thought I would just swallow this, like I had swallowed every other injustice. They thought I was the easy child, the pushover. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. They had forgotten who set up the college funds in the first place. My grandparents, my father's parents, were practical people. They were farmers who had struck oil on their land and, terrified of their new wealth being squandered, had set up ironclad trusts for their grandchildren. When Clara and I were born, they established our educational trusts. I'd only seen the paperwork once, years ago, but I remembered my grandfather's words. This is for why. Our education, girls, not for frivolous nonsense. And it's split right down the middle, 50-50. Fair is fair. My father managed the trusts, and for years, fair was the last word I would use. Clara was always the delicate one. She had sensitivities. When she failed a math class, it was because the teacher was a brute and she needed a private tutor. When I aced the same class, it was just, oh, that's nice, Alina. When she wanted to go to an expensive summer art camp in New York, my mother, Janice, convinced my father it was essential for her portfolio. When I wanted to go to a coding camp, I was told it was too expensive and I could just learn that online for free. I learned to stop asking. I applied for every scholarship I could find. I worked 20 hours a week at the university library. I ate instant noodles and patched my own clothes. All the while, my parents praised me for being so responsible and independent, never once acknowledging that I was only independent because I had no other choice. My mother was the architect of this dynamic. She saw Clara as a reflection of herself, artistic, fragile, and deserving of a soft life. She saw me as my father's daughter, practical, sturdy, and capable of fending for myself. My father, Mark, simply went along with it. He hated confrontation, and funding Clara's whims was easier than listening to my mother's justifications. Now, sitting in my childhood bedroom, the $10 gift card burning a hole on my desk, I realized they hadn't just been frugal with me. They had been actively diverting resources. And I had a sinking, sickening feeling I knew exactly where they'd gotten the money for that Europe trip. The next morning, I was polite. I came downstairs, made coffee, and even congratulated Clara, who was already online shopping for travel adapters. "Mom, Dad," I said, catching them in the kitchen. "I've been thinking. Since the certification course is so time-sensitive, why don't I just pay the $3,000 enrollment fee myself, and you can reimburse me? I can use my savings." My mother's face tightened. "Oh, Alina, don't be silly. You need your savings." "It's fine," I said, watching her carefully. "I'll just need to be reimbursed before the end of the month." "We'll see," my father mumbled from behind his newspaper. "Clara is going to need a good bit of spending money for Europe, you know. We can't have her stranded." That was it, the confirmation. The money wasn't just spent, it was being actively diverted, right now, from my future to Clara's vacation. I felt a sudden, icy calm. The girl who cried in the car last night was gone. In her place was a strategist. I went back to my room, closed the door, and pulled out my phone. I didn't call the number for the certification course. I called the number for a man named Mr. Davies, a partner at the law firm that had managed my grandparents' estate. He had been a friend of my grandfather's, and he'd always told me to call if I ever had any questions at all. "Mr. Davies," I said, my voice steady. "This is Alina. I have some questions about my educational trust." I explained the situation, the lifelong disparity, the sudden, extravagant trip for my sister, my parents' refusal to pay for my pre-approved certification. I could almost hear him frowning through the phone. "Alina," he said, his voice grave, "your father, as the trustee, has a fiduciary duty to manage that fund according to your grandfather's will. That will explicitly states a 50-50 split for educational expenses. Art trips and new cars are a gray area. But this," he paused, "this sounds like something else. I'll need your signature to request a full audit of the accounts. It will be quiet and it will be fast." "Do it," I said. "Send me the papers." I felt no guilt. I felt only resolve. This was not me being vindictive. This was me finally claiming what was mine. It only took 3 days. Mr. Davies was, as promised, fast. He called me while I was at the library, ostensibly filling out job applications. "Alina, the preliminary findings are concerning," he said, and I could hear the anger in his voice. "It's not just gray areas. There have been substantial, improper transfers from your designated fund directly to your sister's personal bank account, as well as payments to her credit cards. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars over the last 4 years. The Europe trip was just the latest. I thanked him, my hand trembling slightly. I hung up and walked home. I found them all in the dining room, celebrating again. Clara had just gotten her new passport. My mother was holding up a new travel backpack. "Elena, perfect timing," my mother chirped. "We're ordering Italian. What do you want?" "I want to talk about the trust fund," I said. The room went silent. Clara froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. My mother's smile vanished. My father slowly lowered his newspaper. "What," my father said, "did you say?" I said I won. "Tea to talk about my trust fund," I repeated, pulling out a chair and sitting down. "My half of it, the half that seems to be paying for Clara's trip to Europe, and her car, and her rent for the last 2 years. My mother gasped, placing a hand on her chest. "How dare you? After everything we have given you, we gave you a home, we paid for your—" "You paid for nothing," I cut in, my voice dangerously quiet. "Grandpa's trust paid for it, and it was supposed to pay for my things too, but you've been stealing from me for years." "That is a disgusting accusation," my mother shrieked. "Mark, tell her." My father, Mark, said nothing. He was as white as a sheet. He knew what a legal audit meant. He knew what fiduciary duty meant. His silence was the only confession I needed. "It's not an accusation," I said, standing up. "It's a fact. I hired a lawyer. I have the bank statements." Clara looked between me and our parents, her face pale with confusion. "Mom, Dad, what is she talking about?" "She's talking nonsense," my mother snapped, but her eyes were darting toward her husband, a new, frantic fear in them. They knew, and they knew that I knew. The next 24 hours were a blur of attempted gaslighting. My mother cornered me in the hallway, whispering that I was tearing the family apart over a simple accounting error. My father tried to bully me, telling me I was ungrateful, and that if I pushed this, he would cut me off for good. "Cut me off from what?" I shot back. "My own money, you've already been doing that." The only person who was quiet was Clara. She de-locked herself in her room, and I could hear her muffled sobs through the door. She was finally realizing that her charmed life, all the little extras she deserved, had been bankrolled by theft, stolen directly from me. The full, bound report from Mr. Davies arrived the next afternoon via courier. It was thick, and it was irrefutable. It wasn't just careless spending, it was systematic. Withdrawals from my fund were immediately followed by identical deposits into Clara's. My father had even used my funds to pay the down payment on Clara's car, a car he co-signed for. It was a clear, documented, and illegal breach of his duty as trustee. I called the family meeting. I didn't yell, I didn't even raise my voice. I sat them all down at the dining room table again. "Here is the full audit," I said, placing the bound copy in the center of the table. "It details $42,000 in improper transfers from my trust account to Clara's. It also details an additional $18,000 used for her non-educational expenses, like her car and her spring break trips." Clara let out a choked sound. My mother looked like she was going to be sick. "I'm not done," I said. "That money, plus interest, is to be paid back to me. Furthermore, you will pay the $3,000 for my certification course, and you will pay Mr. Davies' legal fees. You will do this with your own money, not from what's left of the trust." "Elena, we can't," my father began, his voice weak. "We don't have that kind of money just lying around." "Then you'll have to find it," I said. "Maybe you can cancel a trip." Clara suddenly stood up, her eyes red. "She's right, Dad," she whispered. "It's her money, you have to give it back." She looked at me, her expression broken. "You have to, Mom, it's hers." The final showdown wasn't a public spectacle. It was something far more devastating, a cold, hard legal execution. I had Mr. Davies with me. He'd offered to come, as a favor to my old friend, he'd said, meaning my grandfather. We sat in my parents' living room, the one with the pristine beige carpets. My parents sat opposite us, looking small and tired. Clara was there too, sitting on the stairs, a silent witness. "Mark Janice," Mr. Davies began, opening his briefcase. "I'm not here as a family friend today. I'm here as Alina's legal counsel." He laid out the documents one by one: the signed will, the trust charter, the bank statements, the transfer receipts. "What you have done," he said, his voice quiet but carrying the weight of the law, "is called breach of fiduciary duty, and it borders on outright fraud. Alina would be well within her rights to have you removed as trustee, to sue you for the full amount plus damages, and to report this. Given your position, Mark, that could have professional consequences." My father, who worked in finance, understood the unstated threat. A fraud investigation would end his career. "Here is the settlement agreement," I said, sliding a final paper across the coffee table. "It stipulates a one-time transfer of $63,000. That's the $42,000 you gave Clara, the $18,000 you spent, and the $3,000 for my course. It also includes Mr. Davies' fees. You have 48 hours to sign this and wire the funds. If you do, this matter stays private. If you don't—" I let the sentence hang. My father's hand was shaking as he picked up the pen. My mother was openly weeping, not for W. Had she done, I realized, but for the fact that she'd been caught. Clara was the one who surprised me. She walked over, picked up the pen from my father's nerveless fingers, and handed it back to him. "Sign it, Dad," she said, her voice clear for the first time. "It's the only thing to do. She deserves it." He signed it, my mother signed it. The Europe trip was canceled. The car, I later found out, had to be sold. Their golden child would have to learn what reasonable meant after all. The wire transfer hit my new bank account 36 hours later. The first thing I did was pay the tuition for my certification course. The second thing I did was put a down payment on a small apartment across town. I packed my things, my old laptop, my scholarship trophies, and my clothes in 2 suitcases. Clara found me as I was walking out the door. "I'm so sorry, Alina," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I knew I was treated better, but I never knew it was your money. I thought they just had it." "They counted on you not asking," I said. "It was the truth. And they counted on me not noticing." I looked at my twin sister, the person who had been my other half and my greatest rival. "I'm not angry at you, Clara," I said, and I meant it. "I'm angry at them, but I'm done. I'm leaving." She nodded, swiping at her tears. "Will I see you again?" "Maybe," I said, "but it's going to be on my terms now." I left. I aced my certification. I got the job. My parents, I heard, had to take out a second mortgage on their house to pay me back. Their relationship with their extended family, especially my grandparents, was ruined. They were a social disgrace. Clara got a job as a barista at the same coffee shop that $10 gift card was for. She called me, and we met for coffee. She paid. It was a start. As for me, I was free. I had my career, my own home, and my self-respect. I had lost a family, but I had finally found my own value. And it was worth far more than a trip to Europe.